fellow small business supporters, I'm Savvy and welcome to my contribution to the AuthorTube seminar series, episode 1. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel for the first time. I'm so glad you decided to come on over. Go ahead and introduce yourself in the comments below because I would love to be writer friends. So today's video is part of a new series of AuthorTube collaborations that is being organized by Robert Jones Story Detective. He is one of my favorite AuthorTubers, so if you haven't yet checked out his channel, I've linked it in the description below and up in the cards, so please make sure you go ahead and check out his channel. He and I, along with fellow AuthorTubers Caro Brown and Lisa Daly, do a live stream every Wednesday from 11 to 1 Eastern, 10 to noon Central, where we do writing sprints and kind of work together and get our writing done and that kind of thing. So that's a fun collab. Make sure you go ahead and check that out as well. So this is a brand new series that has just come to AuthorTube called the AuthorTube Seminar Series. Basically, Robert Jones Story Detective came up with this awesome idea that we could get a bunch of AuthorTubers together to discuss different elements of putting a story together, to kind of each give our own experience and our own advice on a specific topic related to writing. I thought this was really interesting for a few reasons. For one thing, we all kind of come at writing from a different perspective. We all have different levels of experience when it comes to writing. We all have different goals when it comes to being a writer. Finding the person whose advice is going to work best for you is kind of a process. So I think this is a great way to take one topic and put tons of different perspectives and tons of different pieces of advice out there so viewers can kind of sift through everything and see what works best for them. There is going to be an entire playlist of all the videos from every AuthorTuber participating in the AuthorTube Seminar Series. So I have linked that playlist up in the cards as well because that playlist is going to be where you can find everyone else's take on this topic as well. Today's topic is going to be story openings. So for this topic, we are all discussing our opinions on, best practices for writing a strong story opening, how to grab your audience's attention, all of that. I know that there's a lot of very different advice out there for different writers on how to grab your audience's attention, how to pull your reader in from the very first line, the very first page of your story. So I figured I would give my opinion on this and talk a little bit about my process for writing a story opening, and hopefully that's helpful for you guys. If after watching this video you decide that my story openings sound really interesting and really make you want to read the rest of the stories, well then you're in luck, because you can check out the links in my description below where I have linked all of my books that I currently have available. I have my young adult novella Beauty King, my new adult novel Sculpt Yourself, and my current young adult novel One Final Vinyl is available for pre-order, so you can pre-order that on Amazon or on my website and you can get a signed paperback. So everything's linked in the description below, don't forget to check it out. You can also check out my Forever Home Friends series, which is my series of books based on real rescue dogs and their stories of getting adopted. They're all picture books. Every book has a stuffed animal and some fun accessories you can get to go along with it. This small business is my main mission as an author, and I give part of my profits to local animal shelters to help them out. So if you guys are interested in that, please go ahead and take a look in the description below. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I do story openings for novels and for picture books and for kids books because it's a little different and I've kind of had a different approach to everything. So let's get into it. So I've taken a lot of writing classes in my life, and I think the only piece of advice that I remember from school about doing story openings is not to start your story with the alarm clock rang. Now, I don't remember where I read that. I read that in a piece of literature that I was reading, literature about the craft of writing. I read it in one of those things that I was reading for a class. I really want to cite my source. I'm going to try to Google it and see if I can figure out where it's from because I want to make sure that I'm citing my sources properly, but I just remember, don't start with the alarm clock rang because that's cliche. That's the only thing I remember, and at the time I was very offended by that advice because I was like, well, what if I want to start all my novels like a quirky teen movie from the early 2000s where characters wake up and get out of bed to a weird alt-rock montage by Simple Plan? That right there I think was a reference to Freaky Friday. I watched that video. I watched that movie again recently. But pretty much every teen comedy from the early 2000s starts with a character's alarm clock ringing dreaming and then waking up. So I was like, what's wrong with that? Why can't I do that? And I guess when it comes down to it, I really don't care how you open your story. If you open it with the alarm clock rang, but you do it in an interesting way, then you do you. For me, a story opening is all about establishing the voice of that story and also like finding a good starting point for it. So I'm gonna read you guys some of my story openings and talk kind of about how I created those and see what you guys think of them. So my weakest story opening is in Beauty King, so we're gonna start with that one. This one starts with hard work and just being a nice guy. Isn't that what it's all about? Also the hokey pokey. So in this I was being a little tongue-in-cheek. I was being a little sarcastic in the opening to this, which does kind of set the tone for the book as a whole. My opening to this story, I got it from when I had originally written Beauty King as a screenplay. So I originally wrote it as a screenplay before I wrote it as a novella. And in the screenplay, I had the opening line being the character working on typing his college essay, and it was the words that were coming up across the screen. So I took that and adapted it to be the opening for this. And I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. I think it does a good job of setting up the sarcasm as the tone that's kind of behind this book and kind of the cynical view that the characters have within it. But I definitely think it could be a little more interesting. So for the full opening, it's italicized and it says, hard work and just being a nice guy. Isn't that what it's all about? Also the hokey pokey. Scratch. I first learned the value of hard work at a young age, 6 when I earned my first $1. It was for unclogging my grandpa's toilet. Looking back, I was undervaluing my services. Scratch. And then it introduces our main character, Jackie Ullman sighed and crossed out another line of writing in his notebook. So from there, we find out that the character is, you know, struggling with writer's block himself. So that's kind of how I did the opening to this. This one isn't my favorite opening, just because I feel like it's not as funny or as interesting as the other ones. Now I'm being down on myself. Sorry about that, guys. I still recommend this book because I wrote it, linked in the description below. But I'm gonna read an opening that I wrote that I like a lot better, and I'm gonna talk about why, and that is my opening that I wrote to Sculpt Yourself. At the beginning of Sculpt Yourself, it starts off with a 3-word sentence, which is, I hate marketing. So I think that's a good sentence to start it off with, because when I was writing this book, I was like in a place where I'm like, marketing my novels is hard, and this main character hates marketing too, so we can just, what am I doing? We can just relate to each other over that. But so it's, I hate marketing. I hate the way commercials, billboards, social media campaigns, whatever, make their profit by emotionally manipulating people. So we start off straight away with the main character's opinion. This is a book told from 3 alternating points of view so that we get each main character's opinion and them directly telling their thoughts to us. And throughout this book, they're going to be sharing different opinions on different issues. So just like right from the get-go, I'm like, this main character is going to start by sharing her opinion. So in the first chapter, the kind of inciting incident that starts this story off is that Amber sees a commercial on her television for the drug Lipomorph, which is what allows people to move their body fat proportions and create their own body distributions and that kind of thing. So she starts off with that. She sees this commercial and she thinks about how much she hates marketing, and it's also a setup because then in the start of the next chapter, which is from Kelly's perspective, Kelly starts off chapter 2 with, I love marketing. It's a fun way to mix the corporate with the creative. So we have these 2 characters, Amber and Kelly, set up who are showing opposite opinions on something, but are also going to fall in love with each other, and it's going to be a struggle for Amber to fall in love with a girl who works in marketing, even though that girl is also trying to embody feminist principles as well, even though Amber thinks marketing is manipulating women with visual images and that kind of thing. That's kind of how it starts off. I did like a parallel starting lines on the first 2 chapters. I was kind of happy with the opening to this, so, you know, that's my opening for Sculpt Yourself. Hope you liked it. Probably my favorite, well, my 2 favorite. The last 2 openings I'm gonna read of my novels before I get into picture books. The last 2 openings I've done of my novels have been my favorites that I've done so far, just because I think they like slam dunk it with the voice. Mainly One Final Vinyl. So I have a playlist of all my videos about my upcoming novel, One Final Vinyl. It's linked up in the cards. I am going to be releasing this novel on May 15th, 2020. It is also currently available for pre-order, so you can check that out in the description below. This is my newest contemporary young adult novel, and it's about a main character who is dealing with anxiety and depression. She's kind of dealing with some sort of yet to be diagnosed mental health issue, and she meets, on the night before she leaves for college, she meets an elderly stranger, and they end up on a road trip together. together, and it's a multi-generational friendship that builds from that and through their connections over music. That's what we've got from that. So we've got a character who's kind of an old soul feeling a little bit lost in the world. I started off her story with, "I've been a walking midlife crisis since the day I was born." So that's probably my favorite opening line I've ever written is, "I've been a walking midlife crisis since the day I was born." And the reason I love that so much is that, like, I started writing this when I was personally dealing with an existential crisis with issues of I'm scared of getting older, I'm scared of not meeting my potential, I am terrified of all of these things, and you know, my OCD is driving me crazy and I don't know if I'm going to be reaching the goals that I want. So I've just felt like I've been in a perpetual state of a midlife crisis, so I wanted to play with that idea with this character, and I thought that kind of setting up that we have a young character who feels like she's in a midlife crisis was going to be an interesting setup for her then meeting an elderly character who's past midlife crisis age, and how they can kind of relate even though they're at vastly different stages in their lives. I'll read you the whole opening paragraph because I think it kind of sets up the character's voice. So, "I've been a walking midlife crisis since the day I was born. Well, not literally, I guess, since I didn't start walking until around 9 months. And because now, at 18 years old, I certainly hope I haven't reached the middle of my life yet, but who knows? Anyone could get hit by a bus anytime, right? And like, there are volcanoes all around the world that could erupt at any second. Plus, I'm constantly seeing idiots everywhere who smoke cigarettes like it's 1965, pretending to be blissfully ignorant of little things like lung cancer and environmental pollution. So, let's face it, waiting until your 50s to call your depression a midlife crisis is already a little optimistic." So, we start off with the fact that this character is, you know, not in the most optimistic mental state right now, but also that she's going to be having like a snarky tone throughout. So that's kind of what I went for with the beginning there. Hope you enjoyed. Now the final one, I can't show you a physical book because it is still in its final revision and beta reading and final editing stages, but that is my young adult novel 90s Kids, which I'm hoping to release by the end of 2020. We will see where I'm at with that. But that is a young adult contemporary LGBT sci-fi. It's basically like a time travel romance kind of story where we've got two girls that were born at the opposite ends of the 90s who both get sent back into the 80s while taking their driving tests at the DMV because there's shady time travel shit going on there. They both get sent back in time and meet each other and fall in love, but how are they going to return to their time periods when they're from different time periods? So I've been having a lot of fun writing that, and it's just all like 80s and 90s pop culture, which, like, you guys know how much I like that shit. That's what I'm working on with that, and so that is also an alternating point of view first person story. I actually struggled a lot with the opening of this because I was doing alternating first person points of view, but where each of the two main characters' storylines start in that is like neither of them really leads to like that slam dunk opening. So I ended up writing a prologue for it. I'm currently like going back and forth. I've written two versions of the prologue, and I'm currently going back and forth with, is the prologue going to be told in close third person from a third character's perspective, or is it going to be told in first person from another character's perspective that we're never going to see their perspective again, which is another main character in the story but not as main as the two characters. I feel like this isn't making sense when you can't read the book, but I hope it does. Anyway, the opening line to that is, "Jenna slapped a bitch at the DMV when she was 16. So I love that line because right from the get-go, we know that Jenna slapped a bitch at the DMV. Basically, we just know from the beginning that like weird shit's happening at the DMV because Jenna slapped a bitch there. We know that that event of a bitch getting slapped at the DMV is going to be very important to what happens throughout the story, and you're not going to see why right away because we're about to go into a bunch of other weird shit, but right at the beginning we're like, ooh, something weird's going on. There's a bitch getting slapped at the DMV. Now what happens? So I hope you guys like that. So basically, I like to use in my novels, I especially like to use my openings to set up the voice and also, I guess, to foreshadow a little bit, but more so than foreshadowing, to just kind of set up that detail of what's going to be going on. In picture books, I kind of do it in a different way. That is because in a picture book, one, there's way fewer words. They're all pretty much like, I think Just Me Wrigley is the longest picture book I've written. It's about 1,000 words. The others are all like 400 to 800 words, so they're much shorter than novels, obviously. So I have to be much more concise and economical with my word count space, but I like them to have a little bit of parallelism within the Forever Home Friends series to solidify it and hold it together. So let's take a look at what I've done for those openings. Here I've got all 4 of my Forever Home Friends books, and I'm going to read you the opening of each one to kind of show the different things I did with each one. So first we've got Princess Allie. This was the first one I wrote. The opening to this one, there's the picture if you wanted to see. It starts with, You can call me Princess Allie. That's because my name is Allie and I've decided I'm gonna be a princess. I'm gonna live in a castle, sit on a throne, and wear a pink crown. Pink brings out the shine in my black fur. So from the very beginning, I'm trying to set up Allie's voice, and that even though she's a dog, she's very sassy. She is a little diva dog. She wants to be a princess, and she's got plenty of attitude, and she's not afraid to share it with you. So I wanted to start that off right from the beginning, but also show her goal very quickly, just like get to it. Another thing is within the first couple lines of every Forever Home Friends book, it's important for me to have the dog introduce themselves because we're about to enter into a story told from this dog's perspective. So at the beginning, Allie's like, you can call me Princess Allie. The way she says it is not my name is Allie because she wanted to do it with a little more like, you know, reaching out to the audience. She's a very social butterfly kind of dog. So she's like, you can call me Princess Allie. Like that's kind of her voice and that kind of thing. So that's where we started with that book. Now let's see how we did it a little bit different with Smile Chewie. So in Chewie's book, we do something very different. Chewie's story is a lot more minimalist than Allie's is, and that's because in Princess Allie, she's like kind of long-winded a little bit more so. She wants to inject her own opinions and her own thoughts and her own attitude into everything. Meanwhile, Chewie's story, he's trying to gain self-confidence. He's a little bit more closed off and reserved at the beginning, so his is told in shorter bursts at the beginning. There's the picture on the first couple pages. It starts with, snap goes the camera. Chewie, look over here, a volunteer calls. So very short at the beginning of Chewie's, we see that there's dogs in the shelter that are getting their picture taken. The camera goes snap, and that's kind of the theme, a motif throughout it, that Chewie's gonna hear the camera snapping, and that is going to like inspire him eventually that he should smile for the camera and he should be proud of himself and that kind of thing. That's how Chewie starts off, but we start off with Chewie, look over here, so instantly we know that Chewie's the dog that we're talking to. The next page kind of goes into that a little bit more. We see the dogs around me make pretty poses. They stand on their hind legs, they wag their tails, they smile big. I cover my face with my paws. So we instantly have a contrast then that we see the other dogs are smiling and Chewie is being shy. So that's kind of how Smile Chewie starts off, showing a completely different tone. For Just Me Wrigley, her story is a little longer than the others, but we have her introduction at the very beginning as well, and from the first page we set up what Wrigley's personality is, what her attitude is, what her conflict is. So Wrigley is the dog who's the quirky goofball of the bunch, right? She's the goof, she's so quirky, like she's not fitting in with everyone else, and in her book she's trying to learn that it's okay to stand out, you don't always have to fit in. But from the beginning I try to set up the fact that Wrigley's a goof. So she starts with, I'm a dancing dog. I can hop and bop, I can wiggle and wriggle. That's why my name is Wrigley. I love to shake my tail all over the animal shelter. But lately I've been worried that my dancing isn't helping me get adopted. So this one I started off like it was super important to me that like we know what Wrigley likes to do. She likes to dance. We know what her name is. She introduces herself. We get a little bit of her personality, and then instantly we get her conflict that she's worried that her being different from the others and being a goofball is not contributing to her end goal, which is to find a family. So that's kind of what we did in there. Anyway, that's basically what I do for my story openings. Please let me know if you guys have questions or want any advice, or if you want me to look at your story opening, just drop me a comment below. I'd love to talk some more. Also, let me know what you thought of my story openings. Again, if these books sound like something you'd like to read, check out the description below. Everything is linked there. For all Forever Home Friends books, stuffed animals, and other products, 10% of our profits benefit animal shelters in Chicago. We have a new collection of accessories that I just launched that you can get to go with the stuffed animals. I made them on the 3D printer, and I've done multiple vlogs as well showing my process of 3D modeling, 3D printing, and hand making and creating those toys. So if that's something you're interested in, please check out those videos as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you're enjoying the AuthorTube seminar series so far. Again, please don't forget to watch everyone else's videos in this series, because that's my thoughts and my process on doing story openings. Someone else might do something completely different and might have completely different advice that might resonate more with you. So please make sure you watch everyone else's videos. Thank you so much to Robert Jones Story Detective for setting up this AuthorTube collaboration and for making this all possible. Please don't forget to check out Robert's channel as well, because he has so many awesome videos and has so much amazing advice on being an author, and I just love his work. I will see you all again soon, but in the meantime, don't forget to support small businesses. Happy writing!